Welcome, and thank you everyone for coming to our session, IP for PDs. And the topic is what producer distributors are looking for and the best way to work with them.
Ooh.
Yes. My name is Raj Patmanathan. I'm a creative director at Kids Industries. We are a full-service agency that focuses on kids and families. So today we have three amazing panels with us who are going to share the opinions, advice on developing, producing, and selling children's media ideas in collaboration with producer distributors. We will deliver into core elements needed for a compelling pitch that captures the attention of these key three players. Yes? Okay, great. Discover what a pitch stand out, explore various collaboration methods, and hopefully gain crucial considerations before approaching a producer distributor. We have a lot to cover, so let's kick it off with the members introducing themselves, the company you represent, but also if you could give us examples of your recent success, and what do you think the most exciting about your company, the USP? Let's start with you, Deirdre.
Oh, hello. I can't believe it's been 7 years since I've been at CMC. And in those years, I've always said it's the most inspiring conversations you'll ever hear. And so thank you very much for coming back. And I hope that we are going to do the same thing for you today. Though a lot of people over the last 2 days have said, you know, Wild Brain? What? Can you explain Wild Brain? So this is a great opportunity. And I will try and keep it brief, Alex. I promise. I do promise, Alex. So we're a global company that focuses on three main areas: content creation, audience engagement, and global licensing. So the distribution side of the business, which is kind of my world, is pretty much like everybody, all platforms, all rights. But we do have a little bit of an unusual range because we have 4 cable pay TV linear channels in Canada. Yes, so we're a broadcaster. And also at the other end of the spectrum, we have an amazing audience and network and studio team that work specifically with the YouTube platform and social platforms based in London that we call Wild Brain Spark. So on production, we have premium animation and live action, again through to optimized narrative content for YouTube and social platforms. So it's an unusual world. But we also have a few other pieces. So media solutions to drive audience growth, franchise management, and also, most importantly, merchandising and licensing with Wild Brain CPLG, who are an amazing group if you haven't met them. We have a very deep content library, which includes our own IP, which ranges from Teletubbies, are you getting a theme here, to Degrassi. But partnerships are a really, really important part of what we do and who we are. And I love that because it's my thing. We did talk for the last 4 years about our 360 lens, but actually I thought, well, what does that mean? Because everybody talks about that these days. And to me it means we like to look at what's possible rather than what's expected. And I hope we walk away today with kind of that feeling of, okay, things aren't the way they were, but what's possible. An example of our successes, so again, I thought if I could keep it in that range, we moved from these sort of partner-led content relationships. And you think of Apple, Snoopy and Peanuts, that's an amazing, deep relationship that has delivered incredible content for audiences. And at the other side, the audience-led world of Wild Brain Spark. So shows that have emerged from that creative team like Boy and Dragon, or even Teletubbies Let's Go, where they're putting their unique skills to an IP that's really well known. There.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Deirdre. Everything she said.
Well, there's so much similarity between the three of us in that way.
Yeah, no, there definitely is. Well, I'm Cecilia Persson. I'm the Managing Director of BBC Studios Kids and Family. I was here last year, and I'm so excited actually to be back to the cinema style and where we have several sessions going on at once, and it's been an amazing week. I think I just wanted to flag, which I know so many people have, how much I enjoyed the keynote, hearing from Izzy and how Marion Edwards set all of this week up for us. So very happy to be here. BBC Studios is the commercial arm of the BBC. It's a separate division to BBC Public Service, which is the main UK broadcaster. I head up the Kids and Family division, which is an end-to-end kids and family production, marketing, digital, franchise management, content strategy, consumer products. So we are, and production, so we are able to work with partners in many different ways. We don't have a set way of working with partners. On the production side, we work cross-genre in live action, animation, factual, unscripted, scripted. So again, loads of different opportunities to work with us. Successes for us are on our independent relationships, things like Bluey and Hey Dougie. In our own productions, Blue Peter. And we've recently also had a show of ours, Phoenix Rise, launched, which we work obviously in close partnership with Children's and Education. Our USP, I would say, is we are a global, well-established business. Even though the kids and family piece is more recently, BBC Studios isn't well-established production and distribution entity.
Yes, so very similar actually. I think our two companies are quite similar except for we don't have any channels. So I work for 9 Story Media Group, which is a global distribution and production company with very much a 360 approach as well. Our production entity is called Brown Bag Films. We have studios in Dublin and Toronto and also Bali. We produce a lot in both 2D and 3D. We have what we call 21 lines of production, so we are often producing at least 21 shows at any given time. And they are a mixture of service, or what we call creative services work, co-production, and then also developing and producing our own IPs. There are so many different entry points to work with us. We love every kind of partnership. There is no one fixed way of doing things. You can pitch ideas to our VPs of development, you can pitch it to me or my distribution team. You can come in through really any entry point, and in fact, that's really one of the fun bits about working here, is that there are so many entry points. We have so many series recently that we're proud of. We make a lot of animation, but we also have a live action division, which was launched about 2.5 years ago. And we recently launched our first show out the door, which is called A Kind of Spark, which was commissioned by the BBC, and which actually we have 2 of our wonderful actors in the showroom next door talking about that experience. We are very proud of a show that we worked with Chris Bridges, who's also known as Ludacris, on. It was his idea. It's called Karma's World. That launched just over a year ago on Netflix. We are the creators of Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood and Blue's Clues, and we make shows like Octonauts. We make Wildcrats. We make a lot of shows for PBS. We have a show called Lou and the Bally Bunch, which recently launched on Warner Brothers Discovery in the UK. So we have lots of lovely productions. And our USP really is that our mission a little bit is to make sure that everything that we make, when a child has finished watching it, somehow it's going to help them be in a better place in the world and feel better about themselves. So we like to keep it really positive and entertaining and a happy place. We like to make shows which are tonic.
I love that.
That was brilliant. I mean, all the shows you guys mentioned are top kids shows, so that's amazing. We have an amazing panel in here. So I'm going to take it as a naive expert. I've got an idea. I want to pitch. But why should I come to a PD than go straight to a broadcaster? Who wants to take that first? Because some of you guys are broadcasters.
I think I've been pre-selected. I think there's nothing to stop people from going to a broadcaster. And I think any kind of conversation that you can have with the broadcaster that you know or that's opportunistic is never going to be harmful. And I also would say that, as someone who's constantly pitching to broadcasters, it's their job to listen to pitches and to be receptive. And so actually, I think that's not the hardest thing. The hardest thing is that if you actually want to get your show off the ground and you want to get it to a place where a broadcaster can seriously consider it, the likelihood is that unless you have a track record and you have produced already a long-running series, and so you have that credential already, that they will require you to pair up with a production company of your choosing or sometimes of theirs in order to feel safe enough to make a commission or a commitment to a show, because as we all know, if we're talking about animation in particular, it's incredibly expensive when you think about how we all go about getting a mortgage, the amount of due diligence that we do and the bank does. And with animated series, you're talking about, if you're making 52 times 11 minutes, a budget that could be anywhere between $7 and $23 million. And so that's a lot of money. That's a very serious commitment. And so you need to work really ideally with a company who's going to be able to surround you with the help and the support that you need, that they are going to be able to take that financial risk. They will be able to bankroll a lot of maybe the early development or possibly dubbing and other aspects. They're taking a lot more of that risk. It's just a better way forward, I would say.
I mean, I'd like to add, I agree completely with what Alex said, but there is also something about not necessarily seeing too many broadcasters before you come to, if you want to work with a producer ultimately, because one of the things that we can really help with is what is the best way to talk to that broadcaster. What are the things that they're looking for? What are they interested in? So we can help shape your pitch and give you support and guidance so that you have more, a bigger chance of being successful and getting your show across the line. So otherwise, Alex covered it very well.
Yeah. I agree. It's about defining what you need at the particular stage that you're at, whether it's development funding, creative support, or actually guidance about audience engagement. So we don't tend to use the words distribution these days because there's so many different parts of it. It got all confusing. So we just say, how do you engage with audiences? And there can be things you can learn at every stage of your development and production process, and we play different roles at different places. I don't know whether any of you follow Evan Shapiro. I recommend you do. And the way he talks about collaborators, I can't say it properly, like I have to see it written, is all about yes and is his big thing at the moment. So it's not a case of either or. It's working out the best way of pulling together information guidance and building advocacy. If you think, I know this project, Deirdre's going to love this project, all right, I think I could get her on as an advocate. So often it might not end up being the partner that you end up with, but the friendships and the relationships that exist across broadcasters, and people might think we're competitive distributor producers, but actually there's more alliance and allegiances than you would actually know. So I would say, what's my path in? What do I really want to achieve? And where am I going to find that advocate that's going to support me, whether it's them or not in the end?
It's a difference between an advocate than pitching to everyone and hopefully someone likes it and going and using that information to pitch to you guys, right? And then the guys with broadcasters in-house, how does that work? So if you are pitching to distributors, do you have to pitch it within in-house, or is it a part of...
That's a really good question. You first. Sorry.
We're really friends.
Yeah.
No, we obviously work very closely with Children's and Education, and we take our ideas and share our slate and talk to them about what we're developing and what we're producing and the partners we're working with regularly. So, yeah, we will talk to our broadcast sisters and brothers, yeah.
It's really interesting at WildBrain because Family Channel was a network that I used to come from Australia and pitch to because they were really well known as great co-production partners and they loved live action, so it was obviously a natural fit for public broadcasters. When I started working at WildBrain, I promise it's not all about me, started working at 2019, that was quite separate. Like they almost had to formalize the relationship between the TV channels and WildBrain for many reasons, including regulatory sensitivities. But the way I think of it now is if you haven't met Katie Wilson, who works on both the sort of the global acquisitions and the TV channel side, we look at content and ideas as an idea and then work out what the best fit is. So the great thing about being much more collaborative across TV and distribution, particularly because we're the same thing, is we've managed to really maximize the value of the TV investments to make shows that probably wouldn't get made otherwise. So that's kind of a good measure for us, is if we don't step in for TV, is this show going to get made? So I'm very proud of some of the projects that we've made that have supported strong creative voices, have been original IP, that the rest of the world hasn't necessarily discovered yet, because we believe in it, but it takes a while to get some new ideas out there. So yeah, we don't so much pitch, but we share.
Okay. And so I guess it all starts with an idea, like a really good idea. But is it different, a pitch to a PD to a broadcaster, what you come with? Or are you guys the same in a sense of big idea than you would support?
Oh, that's a good question.
I mean, I think it's the same. I think all we're after is, hearing what that idea is, and it may well be on one A4 piece of paper, or it may be a more fully developed Bible and a script. And we're kind of interested in seeing it at the stage that the creator wants to show it, and it is quite often a good thing for it not to be too profoundly developed, too deeply developed, because the more you work in partnership on the development side of things and in tandem with a production company, the better the chance of it actually fitting in with the needs and wants of various different commissioners and buyers. And we do, because we live and breathe that every single day. We're really conversant with it. We really understand who not to take a dragon show to. And also because of the competitive set, you've got to be always thinking about that in the early stages. So we love seeing an idea anytime. And we're always open to unicorns as well.
Alex, do you ever have the opportunity for those sort of opportunistic distribution pickups? I don't know if they're out there anymore, where you're just bringing a small percentage to the table and then you become an advocate later. Does that happen?
It's really infrequent. It's really rare, and it's really lovely when it happens. We have recently picked up the rights for an absolutely beautiful Korean show, and we have limited rights, but we absolutely love it. So we've gone for the limited rights for this amazing show. We believe in it. So it's lovely when that happens, but it doesn't happen very often, as you know. Yeah.
Can I go back to your point of development as a creative? How far, when you talked about develop, how far it needs to be? Is it just a napkin idea, one-liner? Is it actually, visuals of characters? I've got a little bit of brand book. How far does that need to be?
I mean, I think from our perspective is that, and you touched upon this already, Alex, is that the creator, the talent, has to know their characters and their vision and the story of the world that they're creating. That there's a comfort from them that they can express what they're trying to, tell. But they don't have to have distilled the design or a massive pitch Bible. It's just knowing what the story is and the characters are, so we can imagine and picture the world and get excited by it.
And it depends who it is too, because if you have existing relationships, so I hate to say it, there isn't a one size fits all. Mm-hmm. The one thing I think people have been surprised by the conversations we've had over the last 18 months is that and this is something absolutely that everybody in this stage does, you bring a global point of view. You bring multiple markets, multiple partners. So you're never going to get feedback through a single purpose and single need, which is incredibly valuable. What I've started doing, though, in the last 18 months, which is a bit naughty, really, it's like I ask why. So when something comes in for 52 by 11s, it's why? Mm. Why would that? Oh, because that's what a significant content investment will be. Is it? So everything I'm learning, particularly from the UK team, many of you know I've spent a bit more time here in the last year, is questioning things we've taken for granted. Like, why would I do the same thing that was always done? Or actually, what if I had 5 years of 300 minutes of content investment? What would I do with those 300 minutes a year? And how can I get the money? So sometimes people really embrace it and go, I hadn't thought about that way. Sometimes people get very annoyed and go, I need 50 to 11. It's like, okay, that's fine. But by coming in with a defined path, you're actually potentially cutting off opportunities at a time where we need to explore absolutely everything on the table.
Are you trying to say that you're the expert in that side that you bring to the table, whereas I guess the creative, you've got the idea, really bring and work on the idea?
All I'm doing is asking questions that I don't know the answers to, but it's a great conversation if you can say, what if we did it a different way? What if we found a community that actually existed already that we know would really love this? How do we reach them? What do we do? That type of brainstorm meeting rather than a formalized pitch, I think is really valuable. And perhaps now we need them more than ever, but I can't believe I came out with that so quickly.
No, but it is interesting to think that the 5211s comes from a commercial advertising, that it comes to a perfect commercial half hour, which is 22 minutes, so there's an 8-minute of advertising in the US.
For a linear channel.
For a linear channel, right? So this was set in stone probably in the 50s, 60s, and we're still sort of like kind of limiting ourselves in some ways in that way. And yeah, no, that's the thing I think is the greatest opportunity now, is that duration isn't as a hard or fast rules in any way, shape or form anymore. It is about the creative idea, what is it that you're trying to tell, and you can also then move into doing longer form for events. Event scheduling is really important to so many platforms now that you're trying to cut through. And we know the audience wants to connect with stories and characters in so many different ways, and you know, short form little clips behind the scenes, finding out more about the character. They won't nothing stopping them to get more closer to the things that they're interested in. So that's really exciting, I find now.
Have you ever seen an idea, though, that you thought that would be a brilliant start in publishing? Or
Oh yeah,
location-based entertainment, or
yeah.
actually this could be like a great way to launch that?
Yeah.
See, that I would beg still to borrow to get that type of advice.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Exactly. As a team, we often we brainstorm around that. You know, what are the extensions? How does this work? You know, because I don't think you shouldn't sort of, you know, stress your process by thinking, oh my God, it has to work everywhere. It has to be a full 360 show. No. It's great ideas. Then those things come quite naturally. The idea speaks back to you saying, yeah, this is a great book. This could be a really good in publishing as well as whatever the original.
But that's also a good time to say to someone, you know what, you should try and make a book first. Let's get a book published first and speak to these people. I think it's so true that we're all still so beholden to these 52 times 11 or, you know, 26 half hours or whatever, and we have to just move away from that. But the challenge is, from a production perspective, is budgets and volume, and you do need a certain level of volume in order to make the budgets work, and because of the investment in a brand new IP in terms of assets and so on. So that's also a consideration, and I think that that's definitely a really great bit of expertise that producer-distributors can bring to the table when someone who hasn't got that experience but has a great idea comes and pitches something. Is, you know, there's a lot of trying to sort of help people understand that process of production and budgets. And of course, the most challenging thing, apart from making brilliant stories, which is the most important thing, is the cost, is financing and the budgets, and how to avoid mission creep, and how to take care of scope and in productions and so on. So, you know, it's very difficult if you're not coming from that background to fully understand. So you really want us to work with a company that really understands budgets and how to extract the best possible value out of your story and your ideas, but also, you know, put some parameters around that so that it's actually manageable and actually financeable.
We're going to come back to funding a bit later.
Yep.
I was just talking about ideas, good ideas. You guys have ways of evaluating good ideas. Like you mentioned, like actually that's a brilliant move into a book. Actually, it would be great for shorts. It's, you know, if it's an older audience, it will be great for social as the episodes. Do you guys have? I mean, obviously you might have your own USPs of using that to make sure this works into those. Any other ways to evaluate ideas?
Well, we do have a whole. We have. Whenever we look at a new idea and someone is excited by it, then that's the starting point. Because you actually need that ambassador. You were talking about advocacy.
Yeah.
You need that ambassador. You really want, if you take your show somewhere, you want someone to be visibly excited about your show. Otherwise, don't go with them, quite honestly.
Agreed.
So, like, if I find a show I'm really excited about, the first thing I'll do is share it with all our development team, share it with the franchise team, share it with the consumer products team, share it with the digital team, share it with our ELT, and everybody gets to see it and gets to, we actually do need to make sure that it's going to work across those areas if that is what the ambition is. And we want those eyeballs on them. We want everyone to have a look, and we want to decide collectively. Because if we're going to go for it, then we're really going to go all in, and we're not going to go by halves.
And is that collaboration of bringing all those different departments to kind of really help and bring this idea to life?
We have a very similar
and I will say
Very
one thing,
similar.
which is that it does have to be for us. We need IPs that are going to work globally. That is definitely probably the big common denominator. Whereas I'm not sure, whether that's always as critical.
I mean, I think that definitely, we're going to get to funding later, but we're definitely moving into a world that you need more than one partner. It's becoming rarer and rarer to be fully funded. So in that regard, yes, global, international, or European, that is very. I wouldn't say it's the only way, but it is definitely paramount to us as well. See, you sidetracked me. I lost my thought.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Continue.
No, but it's true, and yes, we have the same thing. And the thing that fascinates me most about the ease of actually getting people's thoughts across the company. I always thought, it's going to take forever, but people are really keen to feed into that process. Not everybody agrees, and I can't, because I always think I love it. Everybody, you don't. No, you don't think anybody in the world will love it? Okay, fine. And it's great. It teaches you that really there's an emotional response at an individual level. But when you're a company like ours, we have to assess the viability of shows, and that's the business aspect after the emotional connection part of it. Yes. And the global appeal is tricky.
Yeah.
Because, and I had the privilege of working for BBC Worldwide as it was then, and watching the drama team, because I wasn't in kids at the time, sort of try and take BBC formats and scripted style and trying to sort of internationalize them more. And every time, I'm not speaking badly because we had this fine line to walk, often they would be the shows that weren't that successful. So I know we were talking about it today. We've talked so much about bold British stories. And finding a partner globally that believes that bold British stories can do well internationally, that's the key. Because even in Australia, every time we've tried to compromise the Australianness of shows, they end up not doing so well. And you think, I am the biggest cheerleader for Bluey and the success of Bluey, because you couldn't get anything, I just got goosebumps, you could not get anything more Australian if you tried. You go from the Wiggles to Bluey, yay. The shows that have cut through globally have been ones that are so Australian you can hardly sneeze at it. It's just brilliant.
And I'd like to qualify, actually, when I took you off piste there. I'm really sorry. What I was actually trying to say was, so, for instance, if we're pitched a show by somebody who's got a commission from the BBC, and they are fulfilling the amazing public service remit of the BBC, which is I adore the BBC and I always will be devoted to it, because they are having to superserve British audiences across the board. In that situation, it may be a show that we cannot come on board with for distribution, because actually it is being made for the British audience. It is correct, and that is right that it be so, but it may well not necessarily travel well, particularly with live action. And that's because, almost all broadcasters around the world create their own live action. It is cheaper than animation. They are also trying to serve their own audiences, the localized content, which is completely critical in every single country. And so there is less of a demand for that kind of live action, which is made to superserve audiences culturally. So I think that's kind of a little bit where I was coming from. That's very hard for us to come on board for a show which might actually be brilliant for one audience in one territory, but may not work for others.
In that case, are they better off having the sort of being guided by the broadcaster of ABC would love to see this, or ZDF would love to see this?
Yes, go straight to the public broadcasters, and yeah.
I mean, you guys are a very powerful network that you have. And so if I've got an idea, pretty much a great partner to get this to life, how do I approach you guys? I mean, what's the best way to start that process? And also, what's the timeline? I would love some case studies. Doesn't have to be names of the shows, but how long does a show take from the initial conversation, sharing around the wider team, getting that feedback, and making?
Well, That's a really good question, Raj, because
Great question.
I think it's one of the hardest things in our collective jobs is managing expectations. And you don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, but the fact of the matter is that, and this is just as a sort of producer-distributor, I don't know what it's like for commissioners and buyers. It's a whole other ballgame. But even for us, we have got easily 50 files on our desks that we're having to read, Bibles, treatments, watch animatics and so on, which you have to do properly. You want to do it properly. And the fact is that if you find something that's interesting and once it's doing the rounds, that could easily take 2 months, realistically. And then it could take a bit longer to make a decision. I think one of the hardest things to manage with new creators and new producers, regardless of how brilliant their IP is trying to explain how long everything takes. To get a show from the first moment it's being pitched and then partnering up with a company like ours, it could, best case scenario, maybe it would take us 4 months to do a term sheet, an agreement. It could take up to a year, depending on all the back and forth that goes on. So I think for people who are new to it, they feel very frustrated often. And that may be because they haven't been in the kids' business for 27 years. And so we're much more sanguine about the fact that it can take a really long time. And then we take it out to pitch to market. And then it might take another 2 or 3 years before we get it financed and can actually greenlight production easily.
I'm impatient. I'll be doing let's try to pitch it somewhere else just to see who would react. So the thing is just hold and wait. Do you still work on it? Do you still develop it further?
Oh, yeah.
That's a good way
That's
to
all
build
happening.
trust. Like, yeah, I'm going to go there.
It isn't like the time isn't because you're spending time just doing individual bits and stacking them on top of each other. You're constantly moving with, developing, talking, pulling together, thinking of the deal, thinking of broadcast partners, should it be a book? All of those kind of things is happening. But it does, it takes time. And the commissioners out there, they change, they evolve, there's difference. We know that the companies are evolving, have different needs, and you kind of have to react to that. So something that you might have been developing with certain broadcaster in mind, they change their strategy, and then you have to pivot. So, yeah.
To Alex's point, we're also pitching. So this is why all of the lines are completely blurred. Even the fact that we're having, and I love it, it's a sort of producer-distributor session, but everybody is in the same boat. So we're doing the same thing. We're waiting for answers and responses. So it's not that different. We're lucky we have that centralized submission system, submissions@wildbrain.com. And the guardian of that, Holly Nichols, is so good at getting things moving. I would rather give someone a quick no. I think we've always said that. Yeah. So I think now we've got a very clear sense of our priorities in the next few years under our new CEO, Josh Sherber. I think we will have the ability to say, all right, I don't think this one's for us, but this is where I would go or what to do. We try to turn that around within sort of maximum of 2 months.
Yeah.
And timeline for BBC? Around the same time?
We definitely try to sort of get an initial feedback within a month, but that is an initial feedback, and it kind of more detail will take longer, definitely.
Yeah, we also, if we have collectively decided that it's not a fit for us, then we do try to get back on that very quickly. So I suppose I'm talking more about the process when we are interested in something, and realistically how long that can take. And as you said, the internal workings, we're doing number crunching, we're looking at finance plans, we're actually trying to really set everything in motion strategically before we close a deal, for instance. So yeah, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. You have to trust the process, and and so anyone that's looking to partner with a company, it's a little bit like finding the right flat or the right partner. You've got to feel good about it. Your spidey sense, your gut has to tell you, yes, this is going to be good because it's a marriage of sorts. And then once you do get engaged, and then once you get married to them, you've got to try and trust the process and understand that you've made an executive decision to partner with these people because of their expertise, because you've done your due diligence, and do your due diligence. Speak to other people whose shows they represent. Ask them, are they happy with it? Do they report to you? Do you see what they're doing? Do they tell you what they're doing? Ask all those questions. And then once you've made your decision, then trust the process and don't always doubt it because you don't know about it or you feel insecure with it. There has to be a bit of a trust there, because that's how you're going to get the best out of it.
Yeah, and I think Sorry, did
No,
you
just
mention regarding the trust? So,
Yes. Oh, yes.
This
Because
could
it's
turn
a
into
marriage.
7 years, yes.
Yes.
10 in success, you're
Yeah.
talking tens of years. You'll talk to the next 3 iterations of us, you know.
Yeah.
Because it's not just getting something funded, it's making it successful. So it's so often, I think we don't go into those conversations in early days going, how are we going to engage audiences? How are we going to make this successful? Because we're so focused, particularly now, on, I need to get it funded, I need to get it made. But we should always have that conversation up front. And it's just like marriage, isn't it? It's communication.
Communication.
When
And
you haven't
funding.
heard from someone, it's always it's like, oh no.
Yeah.
And leading on to funding.
Oh.
We got there so quickly.
Yeah, we got the yeah. What are the new ways of funding? Is it still kind of from broadcasters to now, PDs? Are there different ways of approaching it? You mentioned regarding international, getting as much different people involved. Are there new ways, or are they still kind of similar? I mean, I'm talking as I have no idea about funding.
Well, I mean, that's all I do pretty much all day long is try and raise financing. So, I do think that because of the changes in the industry recently, which have been referenced so much recently, and again, I just see this is how it goes. We've all seen it. It goes like this, and it will all be okay again. But in the meantime, we just have to be a bit more scrappy, I think, with financing. We're not necessarily getting these full commissions for originals where the lion's share of the budget is covered by a big, a media company. And so I see a lot more kind of co-production and pre-sale financing going on, which is actually a model that I really like. It just takes a lot longer. It takes a lot longer. It often means that you might have 3 key broadcasters or commissioners on board, all of whom are going to have creative input throughout the whole process, and you have to really have a tight budget and production sort of management system in order to make sure that everybody does get to have their input and so on. And I think that the hard part is it's educating your partner on how hard it is to do the financing and how long it can actually take. I think what you were saying earlier about, I can't remember who said it, that if you've already gone and taken your project to many broadcasters, that could really do a disservice to me when I'm trying to go and get it financed, because by this time we maybe have already developed it further, and we go in and they say, no, I've seen this project. No, but wait, no. There's more to see. Let me talk to you about it. And actually, people's time is short, and you may have lost that opportunity. So because so much financing now does have to come through pre-sales, it is kind of better to partner up if you can earlier on, so that there's a better chance of actually getting those key pre-sales in. And you need, often a good, 3 to 7 strong deals to get your show financed alongside tax credits and maybe a bit of investment.
And how much do you need to have developed further to get those kind of investments? So
How
how much do you need to develop the show further? Are we going straight into
And
animatics?
that is so much how long is a piece of string. It just depends entirely. It may be that someone's come with a brilliant idea, like what you were talking about, great stories, great characters, but they haven't gone down the character design route yet because they don't have that expertise. So then we would put our art directors and our teams on it and see what comes out of the mix. It's so iterative, of course, that whole side of things. That could take 6 months or 8 months until everyone feels this is good to take out now to these key potential partners.
Yeah, trust the process.
Yeah, trust the process.
Anything else to add?
Yes, lots. I've been brewing on this like a pot of tea
Okay, here we go.
for many months, and particularly in the last few days. And if you missed the animation session this morning, please watch it, because they came up with so many things that made me scribble stuff down. So it's so hard, because originally I had notes saying it's very complicated right now, and understand how difficult it is. And I thought, well, what use is that? We've got to come up with some suggestions to start new conversations and way of thinking. So that whole thing, then I thought I'm going to get up and go, believe. Because every time I watch Ted Lasso, I go, I believe.
Yes.
Don't watch a dystopian drama, watch Ted Lasso. And
Yes.
it's like,
Ted
yes,
Lasso.
we're going to do it.
Yes.
And when I first read the byline on that, by the way, I went, oh, why on earth would I want to see a show about an American coach of a British football team? They won't understand that.
Yeah.
How wrong was I?
Yeah.
So, as usual. And then I wrote down, desperation leads to innovation. And you think, yeah, everybody knows that. That's still not an idea. So I thought, all right, ideas. So, experiment. Somehow I feel, again, because we've lost our sense of control of the world because of the last 3 years. Power up. I've also been brewing on that like a pot of coffee, because I'm in North America now, so it's coffee. It's kind of about empowering ourselves to realize that there is something that we can do. We've got more opportunity now. There was one of the quotes from Obama in one of the sessions about, if you chose a time to live, you'd live now. I thought, well, that applies to us. We've got more opportunity to connect to audiences and consumers in different ways than we've ever had before. But I'm sitting there going, I can't get anything made. Like, it just seems a little bit crazy. And yet we also know, and there were lots of people in the last 24 hours have said, if you can prove a connection to audiences in some way, you've got a good chance of somebody putting $1 on the table, £1 on the table. And I thought, well, that's kind of true. So if we combine it, what are the ways of actually proving an audience connection if you don't go traditional pathways? Talking to wonderful Cedric at YouTube yesterday, YouTube is not a new platform. YouTube is a mature platform that understands audiences and how to connect. So if I wanted to go and make something and connect to audiences, I could. I'm not very good at it because I'm not creative, but you are. How do we go out and actually show that there's a connection, prove things, to actually give people a sense that their money is a safer bet? Because we're living in this world that is completely risk averse. So unless we can demonstrate and we go, well, yes, Coco Melon did that, look at that. They keep making new series and different platforms with different partners, and you think, we can do that. So I think let's experiment and not necessarily go and ask for money, but all right, what can we do? How can I get smaller amounts of funding to be able to develop? Development in real time with real audiences. I think we've got to actually change the way that we think about development. So I think that's one option. New rights. There are new rights out there that people are interested in buying that really we haven't even heard of. Like this RVOD, redemption VOD, with retailers in the US. It's extraordinary. Yeah. And niche community services. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard of Angel Studios. Definitely look at Angel Studios. There are people that are serving communities and have new ways. I'm not saying just crowdfunding, because they're crowdfunding. There's new ways of working, but we have to actually keep on top of our research to work out what they are. And those communities and the funding that can come with communities is really important. Non-traditional partners, so equity is out there. How many of you get strange emails saying, look, could you talk to me for 30 minutes about the kids' business, because we've got partners that would like to put some money into this. We're seeing some interesting models in the adult space. We should be chasing it, because gosh, how good would they feel if they're actually doing something for the future generation? There's something there. It's like, you can help me make the world a better place through the eyes of people under the age of 12. Yes. I'm looking at Alison. Alison, like, if she said that to me, I'd be in. It's like, yeah, here, take £1. So there are different ways, but I think we haven't leapt to that initially because we've been in a place where we feel out of control as a human race. But I think now Power Up is the right thing, and I was confused at the beginning of the week, but I've got it now. It's like, okay, what's within my control to be able to do, to be able to prove that I've got a great idea, to be able to prove that I'm worth investing, to be able to convince somebody who we wouldn't normally talk to that perhaps this is a good way. And there have been pockets of it, mostly with the panelists who are under the age of 30. I don't know whether you've noticed that over the last 3 days. So believe. Brilliant. There you go. So I tried, because I think it's within the people in this conference, in this room, on this stage. I think there will be a breakthrough that will get us all excited, and we'll go running after that.
No, definitely. This is the thing. I found myself between these two, and I like everything they say. I go, oh, I've had this idea. I want to take notes, and then I forget to say anything. And I forget to say what to say. I mean, I think you guys touch upon it. This is the bit about our industry that I love so much, is that we are the best collaborators. We will find a way. We persevere. We are so keen to work together and get great ideas across the line. And you know, from BBC Studios Kids and Family perspective, we don't have any set templates of how we work with creatives, how we do deals, what rights we need to have, etc. We work on finding a way to get things produced, and that it's a win-win for all of us, basically. That's the plan, and yeah.
And you know, one mustn't lose track of the fact that none of any of this is possible without the most important commodity, which is brilliant ideas.
Yes.
And that's what you bring to the table, and that's what we want and what everybody wants. And you've got a brilliant idea, it will find its way. It will rise to the top, they just do. So yeah, that's why it's really nice that you're doing the Believe thing, and I'm going to...
Believe!
Believe.
I mean, how did you feel in the pitch session? How many people
God, it
went
was
to the pitch
amazing.
session? Yeah, I was sitting with Alex. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And you know, we're going, snap that up, snap her up. Oh, yes, that's great. And then even at the end, we would, after the live show, the two fantastic guys, forgive me, I can't remember their names. There's no reason you couldn't stick that in particularly in the UK where you have a hostings set up still, when you think of Milkshake and you think of CBBC and CBBS. Live television in the UK still exists. Yeah. It's one of the great joys. There's no reason you couldn't just stick them in a live studio and do that. And how much does that cost?
Yeah, yeah.
It's based on improvisation and a few costumes and their personalities. And I thought, that's not a big fully, like, where's the finance plan on that?
Yeah.
It's like, no, actually.
Yeah, that's on the back of a napkin.
That's on the back of a napkin. And I thought, you know, how could we do that?
Yeah.
How could we do that on YouTube?
Yeah.
I was so excited.
It was excellent.
Yesterday.
It was completely outstanding, the pictures yesterday.
And are you guys doing anything different on your platforms? I know some of you guys have, probably YouTube, probably in your broadcast, you have digital platforms. Are you doing anything different, trying anything different? Is that type of content format you're actually playing with?
Yes. I like to think, and particularly with the wonderful team we have in London, it's kind of like the audience and consumers have gone somewhere and we really have to catch up. And there's a wonderful team member there, Jack Luckett, said, I don't want to be the YouTube guy, just the YouTube guy. So I've taken that as a mantra over the last couple of years going, you're right. Okay, we don't know what platforms are coming, but we have to, there's a real moment where we're at the intersection of content and technology. So even Dusty Deirdre has to be on the cutting edge of understanding what technology can bring us, because it's a new opportunity to engage with audiences. If you look at companies like, and write this down if you haven't seen them before, Invisible Universe and Aquafire, they are developing real time on social platforms. So on a business sense, I'm putting stretches in for the next 3 years to say, I am going to find new ways of connecting audiences and make money somehow. I don't know exactly how I'm going to do it, but we're going to do it. And it's with the team that actually understands that direct relationship with audiences in WildBrain more than anybody else. So they're working on what narrative formats, sort of structures look like in a micro format. So I think somewhere along in my career I thought, oh, YouTube is amazing. You just make short form content and you put it on YouTube and it works. Oh. What I've learned from the studio at Spark about how you structure storytelling, it's as much heart and soul goes into a 5-minute episode that's created for YouTube. It's premium content for YouTube as a movie. So everything we can do to chase that audience. What I'd love to do is get out of a situation where we're always just responding. If we could actually ever get to a point as an industry where we're anticipating where our audience is going, would be so good. And if we can use data, particularly from platforms like Fast and YouTube and anywhere I can get it to do that, then we will be leading the charge. Believe.
I think that's so important throughout these few days. You know, it's about the story. It's the format and however you tell, but it's about the story. And story, again, I think we were talking about in a few years' time, is it still going to be in the same format as a traditional story? How do you engage? You might have a start, middle. Yeah. So
no, hold on. Yes, and. Thanks, Evan. Yes, and.
Yeah, I think that's very exciting for, especially in the kids. I always feel sometimes it should be an experimental space, and I think kids adapt technology a lot more faster. So I think seeing you guys commissioning or working with content that kind of play around or try that, and working with different creatives could deliver, that's exciting.
And we have that platform. We have, as Deirdre was saying earlier, we have this incredible ability now to develop a great idea. Maybe we take it out to market, we take it to all the traditional commissioners and buyers, and they all say, God, you know, it's really lovely, it's not for us right now, or we can't afford it, or whatever it is, but we know we're on something brilliant. So we decided, okay, well, let's completely, I don't want to say the word pivot.
Pivot.
I've used it already.
Let's
Come
pivot.
in, it's nice.
All right.
Word.
Actually, I'm feeling good about
Let's
it
take
now.
it back.
Yeah. So we like to just pivot and go, okay, let's
Pirouette.
bring it down. Let's get the essence of it. Let's make some short form content.
Yeah.
Let's use our new Unreal Engine pipeline that we've just set up, because we know that we know what we're doing with that. We've tested it. We know how that works now. It's going to be a little bit more affordable. Let's invest and let's make this, and let's put it out on all our socials and on our YouTube channels, which are already working. And let's collect that data and let's see how that's working. And let's see if maybe we need to continue feeding that machine a little bit more with little bits of content. And then let's just see how that's looking in a year from now. And if that's looking good, let's gather all that data, go back in and say, hey, do you know this thing that you kind of liked?
Yeah.
You know, this is where we're at with it. We really believe, like, you might take another look at it, and here's the data. We couldn't previously, that's what is so amazing about what Deirdre interestingly calls AVOD, and I have always called AVOD.
Say AVOD now.
But I think it's because you're
AVOD.
Australian. But she's
AVOD.
Australian, so we can't expect
New
that, you
Zealander.
know. Sorry.
I'm identifying as an
Pivot, pivot, pivot.
No. And Australian. Sorry.
I don't know how to pivot out of that.
That's a joke.
I have known Deirdre for
I'm an Anzac.
27 years.
You have.
But it's your fault for being at the ABC for so long.
Well, I am Australian, really. Sorry, it's not about me.
Confused.
No, I'm super confused.
So am
Very
I.
confused now.
I'm both.
Oh, 50-50.
I think we need
You were
to
50% right.
Yes.
Yeah.
wrap this up. But
No, I have a good example. I'm sorry, I do talk too much. Caillou. It's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Caillou. Nobody likes Caillou. I've had Caillou my whole life. Caillou is the
I
most
bought
ama-
Caillou, so
I bought Caillou.
I like Caillou.
I like
do-
Caillou.
I stand
I
by
do now.
Caillou.
And honestly, there was something about that show that connects to kids because it puts them as part of a family. And we now talk about shared family experiences, and you think it was ahead of its time. Everybody kind of like, eh. The YouTube studio, the YouTube team, Spark, took it, did its own expression of Caillou. #1 channel. Millions and millions of views around the world. We thought, oh, there's something there. So we made specials with the Family Channel. They've been picked up. And I have to say thank you very much to Cartonito at the time, because it was the first identification of, oh, this could actually be really good. Now we have a series with Peacock. Now that show remained or had a renewed relevance because of exactly that.
Yeah.
And it's now one of our most successful properties. Sorry, but it's like nothing is ever done.
No.
Leave.
No, it's a world of opportunity. It's definitely the way to look at it.
Yeah.
There are more and more opportunities. There are different ways of doing things, and as long as the idea is great, that's the kickoff point.
just don't give up, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is another way
As
of
Peter
saying
Gabriel and
believe.
Kate Bush said, we were going to sing it, but Alex can sing really well.
I'm going to put out, if anyone got any questions, now would be a good time. Oh, we got a few questions here.
Hi, my name's Winsome, author of the Popcorn House, trying to turn it into animation. You mentioned about the importance of funding, but then you mentioned equally the importance of making it successful. So could you give me the 3 top tips that you can make a 3D animation successful, please?
Wow.
And it does depend on the platform and the partner, because if it is a partner-led series where you really have one home that kind of takes the engagement responsibility, that's one way of working. But there was the Ampere presentation. They do such great work to show that, you know, sort of 4+ platforms is the way to actually build audiences. So it's thinking beyond the initial funding need and saying, what rights do I need to keep that I can actually bring this show to audiences in different places, and as many places as possible, to build that audience, to make it more successful. And as they talked about this morning, broadcasters are more open to sharing and having flexibility in order to make something successful. So the time, you can really see how that's evolved. The hard lines of exclusivity have really softened. But it's thinking about putting yourself out of the moment of making the show, which is such an incredible consuming process and saying, where is that other person at the other end of the screen who's going to love this and talk to their family and talk to their kids? And what does that person look like in 3 years' time and 4 years' time? So I would recommend an engagement plan, not just a finance plan, with every project that you work on.
Yeah, and I think also, it's also about how do you qualify success. So, if you've got a brand, an IP that you've identified as a potential franchise, so really you are going to look to build it from the ground up into something that can deliver on a consumer products level. That's kind of one area of business. So the metrics for success there are going to be very much governed by eyeballs, exposure, good scheduling, great marketing support, a whole digital plan, and it's a very immersive, deep and expensive and difficult route to take. But many shows should and must be made because they're brilliant ideas. And then what is the success there? The success is you get it financed, you get it made.
Editorial success.
It finds its audience and people love it, but it may editorial success, and it may not be a huge, massive success. It may not become a mainstream show. It doesn't have to be.
No.
So, but it is really good to know what you're aiming for. And I mean, I think one thing that we've all learned the hard way is that not every show can perform at consumer products level. In fact, very few can. So it's really helpful to very early on go, okay, we're not going to even try to do that with this. We're just going to tell a beautiful story, stories that need to be told, and we're not going to try and see downstream revenues 15 years down the line. It's just going to be a beautiful show. We'll make the money back on it and maybe a little bit more.
But this is also where potentially the producer-distributor relationship is something that you might want, because those kind of conversations that you just heard and looking at your idea and thinking what route should it take? How do we reach an audience? How does this connect with the person that's going to love and cherish it and tell all their friends? And that's what we can help with.
We got one more question, a couple more.
This lady down here. She was right. This lady right here.
Right there.
Right here.
Thank you. Hi, I teach and research in Staffordshire, and I see a growing interest among MA and BA students in making VR animation and immersive and interactive animation. Just my question is there a venue or opportunity in your companies for a project that is wholly focused on this kind of a storytelling rather than just linear screen-based now or in the future?
I mean, I think for us, it's all about the medium. If you're doing interactive or VR-driven programming, then it's not necessarily. You're talking about working with different platforms which serve that kind of medium. We're not actually really doing anything in that space. We are certainly looking at brand extensions for IPs that we're creating which extend into those areas, and working with experts and partners from those areas who can help us because we don't have that in-house. So I would say that for us, we're not necessarily looking for content. We wouldn't really know, we wouldn't have the expertise to place that kind of content.
Yeah, it's very similar for us. Yeah, we're looking at that as an extension to bring our brands to audiences in different ways and have them opportunity to interact.
Yes, we're not there yet, but even just there's always an element of guilt in my life thinking, why are we not doing something with gaming as much as we should be, when you think 4 billion gamers around the world and such an important part of our audience's life, and I have a feeling that will all combine somehow. So I think there will be stories that come with a gaming mechanic in a way that expressed through AR and VR, but not yet. But as people keep believing, we will when we have people like you to teach us how to do that.
Also, I think interactive storytelling is very interesting. It's a little bit different, I think. Obviously, Netflix experimented with it with Bandersnatch, and that was really interesting. I think that there is definitely a lot of future for interactive storytelling, especially with children, where they can navigate that and make choices is really interesting. I think there's going to be a lot of that coming up. VR is a little bit harder sometimes with children because of the mechanics of it all. I think there's a lot of question marks still around that.
Yeah, the age of it.
Yes.
We got one more? Over there.
By the way, if you want to be inspired, go and see the ABBA show.
Yes.
I was thinking about it today because it's not only technology through holograms that I believed was them, but also they had the most brilliant animated stories on these beautiful big screens. So if you just need a jolly moment, just to get you through this, go and see that. It's the holistic experience of a lifetime. I think, there you go, they're not paying me.
You say that.
They're not.
Rutendo Mushambi from Naniso Create. My wife is the creative, not me. This has been a great panel. Thanks very much. And it's great to hear some enthusiastic and optimistic messages after some of the more downbeat notes of the earlier session. You've made the point about not approaching too many broadcasters before talking to PDs because of the risks inherent in that. Any thoughts on the etiquette of approaching multiple PDs at the same time, especially considering the long-term lead time for getting engagement and responses?
Everyone does it, and it's completely, totally fine and acceptable. And you want to shop around, definitely. You want to talk to lots of different, anyone that you can, and it also helps to build a picture and to start figure out what you're looking for, what matters to you, and what the determining factors are for you is really important. So I'd say absolutely.
Yeah, we make referrals to each other, actually.
Yeah, we do.
Right.
But just don't go with them.
I was expecting more of that throughout the talk, but yeah, glad you got it at the end.
We're better.
I think that's it for this session. An amazing panel.